What's good, y'all? And welcome to another preseason preview video. In today's video, we're going over the Atlanta Hawks. In case this is your first preseason preview video of mine that you're seeing, basically what I do is go through each move they made in the offseason and do a little recap, and then look into the future to try to see what we can expect. Before we get into it, I want to remind you guys to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you already haven't. After you're done watching this one, make sure you check out the description. There's a link to a playlist that will bring you to all the other teams that I've already previewed. And without further ado, let's take a look at the additions the Atlanta Hawks made this offseason. The Hawks weren't very active in free agency this year, but that did not stop them from bringing in guys in other ways. Of course, they won the lottery and got the first overall pick and selected Zachary Richache from France, as well as in the trade market brought in Dyson Daniels and Larry Nance Jr. from the Pelicans. Now, I know the whole thing about this draft class was that it was super weak. There's no number one really guy out there in the draft. So a lot of people, I feel like, have been disrespecting Zachary Richache. But I feel like they're still forgetting he was the number one overall pick still. He may not come in and be this superstar out the gate and doing all these things on the court, but I still think he's going to be able to come into the Hawks and be a productive NBA player. He's got great length, being 6'9", and he competes defensively. He's not the most athletic guy out there, but he's still able to hold his own, and he is also super skilled for his size as well, whether that's when you look at his jump shot. You know, he has really good mechanics and looks like he could project to be a good three-point shooter in the NBA, but also his ball handling is very good for his size. He's able to get to the rim and finish pretty well also. And then playing alongside a guy as talented offensively as Trae Young, I feel like Zachary is in a pretty good spot to be able to blossom and show why he was the number one overall pick. And then when you look at the guys they brought in trades, Dyson Daniels and Larry Nance, of course, I like both of these guys, and I feel like they're going to fit pretty well with this Hawks team. Starting off with Dyson Daniels, I am a pretty big Dyson Daniels fan. I feel like here coming into Atlanta, he has the perfect opportunity to become more of a player that I think he can be. He's got great size at the guard position, being 6'8". I feel like he is perfect to put next to Trae Young because he is that defender. I know they brought in DeJounte Murray with the idea of him being the defender next to Trae Young. Dyson Daniels really will be that defender next to Trae Young, though. He is incredible using his length and size to his advantage. He's also a very solid finisher and good secondary playmaker, and I think that's where he's really going to be used offensively. If he can bring that three-point shot up, oh my god, the sky is the limit. But even with what we're looking at right now, I think he's going to be a great fit next to Trae Young in that backcourt. And then speaking of fits, I feel like Larry Nance is damn near the perfect one to run a pick and roll with Trae Young. He is an incredible lob threat, can really catch from like any angle and slam it down. I like him being a little bit of a small ball, mobile big here for the Hawks, kind of switching it up for them. Of course, you can't bring in all of these guys for free though, so let's take a look at the guys that they lost this offseason. Of course, DeJounte Murray was one of the bigger names this offseason that got moved. He was traded to the New Orleans Pelicans. The Hawks also did lose Saddiq Bey in free agency. He signed a new deal with the Washington Wizards. Now, I know the pairing of DeJounte Murray and Trae Young never really manifested itself on the court the way that a lot of people thought it would. I kind of mentioned it before, but the Hawks brought in DeJounte Murray to be that perfect pairing next to Trae Young, and on paper, when it first went down, a lot of people saw the vision. He was going to be able to come in and defend next to Trae Young, give them more size. He could still get his own shot off, but then also run an offense by himself or on the ball when Trae Young needs a rest or is on the bench. On paper, it looked like it would work out. It never really did on the court, though. They never really seemed to have a lot of chemistry playing together. It was a lot of, all right, Trae Young, go get a bucket. All right, now DeJounte, you go get a bucket. All right, back to you, Trae. You get it this time. It never really was a cohesive offense. And then also on the defensive end, I mentioned they brought him in to defend. When he came to Atlanta, he kind of fell off defensively a little bit. So after a few seasons of not really seeing any success, I understand why they moved on from DeJounte Murray. Still, regardless, though, I do think that he is a very talented player, as we all know, and I do think the Hawks might miss him a little bit. And the other big loss was Saddiq Bey, who tore his ACL towards the end of last year for the Hawks, so they've already kind of been accustomed to not playing with him. But when he was on the court, he had a pretty solid year scoring the ball at least. He signed a new deal in Washington. He's going to be able to rehab his ACL back to health, and hopefully we'll see him in sometime on the court this year. I'm not entirely sure though. He might be out for a big chunk of it. And now that we know who came and who went, let's take a look at a potential rotation we could be seeing from the Hawks. There are some new faces here in the starting lineup, but of course we still have Trae Young running the show at the point guard spot. Alongside him, we have Dyson Daniels, Zachary Ricochet, Jalen Johnson, and Onyeka Okongwu. Then off the bench, we have Bogdan Bogdanovic, DeAndre Hunter, Larry Nance Jr., and Clint Capella. So looking at this team, on paper, I think it's very fair to say that objectively they have less talent than what they did last season. I talked about it. I know DeJounte Murray wasn't the best fit here, but he still is a very talented basketball player. I do think that this could be a real test to the less is more theory. Shout out to Pee Wee the Plug from the Numbers on the Board podcast. But I feel like now they took out this guy who didn't really fit, and they replaced him with players that I think will fit very well in Dyson Daniels and Larry Nance. This is also a sneaky young team. I never really realized how young this team really is. They have 4 players that are under the age of 24. That is, of course, Onyeka Okongwu, Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, and Zachary Ricochet. And then even if you throw Trae Young in there, he's only 26 years old. I know DeAndre Hunter's about 27. They still are a really, really young team, and I didn't realize that until I really deep dive looked at it. And with the combination of the fact that they did lose talent and they also are a super young team, I feel like this year it's going to put a lot of pressure on Trae Young. Now, pressure makes diamonds, so, Trae Young could really just succeed a lot and exceed a lot of expectations this season with this roster and elevate them, because I do think they fit well together. I just feel like if he's not able to keep up that level of play for a full season or able to elevate these guys to the level that they need to be a competitive team, I feel like it's going to be a lot of pressure on him. And if he can't do that, will this be the last we see of Trae Young? I don't want to get too far into speculation here, but with this, mini youth movement that we're seeing here in Atlanta, it kind of got my gears turning a little bit. Will Trae Young want to play with these young guys? Like I said, he still is on the younger side himself. Or will he try to want to compete right now and try to get to a team that's at that higher level of contention? I don't really know. We'll have to see how the season plays out, though. And now that we have an idea of what this team might look like, let's take a look at one of their biggest strengths. The Hawks have some of the best size at the wing spot that I've seen across the league, honestly. They have 6'5" bogey, and then beyond that, they have everyone 6'8" or taller. And with the size and defensive deficiencies that Trae Young comes with, it's a match made in heaven. Now, it could be because I personally am a Knicks fan, but it's hard for me to not make the connection between the Knicks and the Hawks and how they're building their team. I know Jalen Brunson and Trae Young are kind of similar players in the fact that they're both small guards, they're both not the best defenders, and they're both on-ball dominant guys. They like to have the ball in their hand a lot of the times. So when you look at the way the Knicks constructed their roster around Jalen Brunson, they're adding guys like OG and McHale, these guys that are super lengthy and can defend. And now, when I look over here, they're bringing in guys in Atlanta like Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Zachary Ricochet, all these guys with super long arms, great size to kind of hide their smaller point guard. I think it's a great idea on paper, and I think that they have a lot of lineup versatility here in Atlanta with this personnel. Of course, you have guys like DeAndre Hunter or Dyson Daniels that can give that 6'8" size at the shooting guard spot if you really want to get big. They can also play some wing and play down a little bit to small forward. Also, you have guys like Zachary Ricochet or Jalen Johnson who could play small forward or power forward with their size, kind of that power wing type of spot. And having this level of size with your personnel really allows you to swap out different guys without losing a lot of size or without losing a lot of spacing or without losing a lot of defense. They can throw different guys at different positions and still have a competent lineup out there. And even to a lesser degree, their centers are kind of like this. I mean, I don't know how much we'll really see it this season, but a guy like Onyeka Okongwu can run some center, can run some power forward. Larry Nance, he definitely can run some center and some power forward together. It depends on how big they really want to get it. Also, their centers just in general, I think when we're talking about fit, I think they all fit Trae Young really well, can operate in a pick and roll, great lob threats, rebounding the ball, defending the rim. Larry Nance, not so much defending the rim, but still he fits in with the lob threat and the pick and roll operation. I definitely think that on paper, this this team fits way better around Trae Young. We'll just have to see how it looks on the court. And now that we got a chance to look at the strengths of this Hawks team, as we all know, no team is perfect, so let's take a look at the weaknesses. Here you can see a list of players on the Hawks that I am confident to go get a bucket and self-create. As you can see, the list is not very long at all, only including Trae Young and Bogdan Bogdanovic. I've kind of been alluding to this pretty much the whole video, but I feel like this year it's going to be a lot of pressure on Trae Young to really give them a majority of their offense. And when I say majority, I mean a heavy majority of their offense. And to be fair, Trae throughout his career has been able to operate in that type of scheme and be able to lead the league in total points and total assists. You know, this is not something really new for Trae Young, but at that same time, they kind of brought in DeJounte Murray to help relieve this so Trae doesn't have to produce at that high level throughout the whole season, throughout the whole playoffs, and have to really exert so much energy just for them to barely scrape out a win. And playing devil's advocate, obviously, like I've said before, that didn't really work. That pairing didn't work. They moved on from him. I don't blame them for moving on from DeJounte. I do kind of blame them for not replacing DeJounte with another guy that can self-create, though. The other guard that they brought back in that trade was Dyson Daniels, and I do think that Dyson can be a playmaker. I think he's best off being the secondary playmaker in a lineup with Trae Young on the court, but I do also have confidence in him to be able to be the main playmaker of the bench unit or certain lineups where he's going out there and getting to the paint and then kicking it out, you know, operating as the main playmaker. I'm not very confident in him getting a bucket, though, and that's what I'm talking about in self-creation. And that leads me to the question, who will replace these minutes and these self-creation opportunities? Are they going to be giving DeAndre Hunter some more opportunity? I mean, he's been a near 15-point-per-game scorer pretty much his whole career. I feel like we kind of, at this point, know what we're getting from DeAndre Hunter, and it's not a lot of self-creation opportunities. Where I feel like they probably gear more towards is maybe Jalen Johnson. He had arguably the most improved player season last year. If he played enough games, he would have been my personal pick. Are they looking to see if this year now he can add on top of that and become more of a self-creator, whether that's getting to the rim or getting his jump shot off in the mid-range? Whatever it is, maybe that's what they're gearing more towards, and I would be a little bit more confident looking at that as an opportunity. It just worries me a little bit that the only concrete guys we can look to for self-creation are Bogdan Bogdanovic, who's coming off a terrific year off the bench, you know, one of the top 6 men of the year. Hopefully he can still recreate that this season. And then also Trae Young. There's really only 2 guys I'm super confident in. And now it is time for my ceiling, floor, and expectations for the Atlanta Hawks. Starting off with the ceiling, I could see them being as high as the 8th seed and being in the play-in tournament. I've said before that there's a pretty clear top 8 in the Eastern Conference and then a pretty clear bottom 7. In this situation, it would have the Atlanta Hawks leapfrogging one of those teams in the top 8 out east. I feel like just in the regular season, shout out to Trae Young, he's able to carry a team like this and get them some regular season wins. When it comes to the actual play-in tournament, though, I mean, anything can happen in a single game elimination. But I feel like it would be pretty hard for them to actually win those games and make the playoffs just because they would have to beat a team that, in my eyes, would be significantly better than them. I cold see it, though, you know, ice cold Trae Young, he's able to pull it out. So I maybe could see them sneaking into the playoffs as the 8th seed at their ceiling. And when you look at the floor, I can see them being as low as the 10th seed, still in the play-in tournament, but now in that lower bracket. They would have to win 2 games back-to-back, and I definitely don't see them doing that, so I would have them missing the playoffs as a whole and being a lottery team at their floor. My expectations for the Hawks, though, is probably right in between there at the 9 seed. You know, makes sense, of course. I do think that they are a play-in caliber team. I think when you have a player as talented as Trae Young, you're going to have at least a decent regular season as long as everyone stays healthy. And I do think that they have a decent amount of talent compared to the real bottom of the East, and I think they should pretty easily be better than a lot of those teams. When it comes to playoffs, though, I just don't think they're at that level. What do you guys think, though? Let me know in the comments below where you think the Hawks will land in this year's standings. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In the description, there's links to all my social medias, so make sure you follow me on all those to keep up to date with me. Catch y'all.